I'll call this Raphaelson's success 120 years later. And the reason I say this is because Raphaelson had a scientific sense. And that was where in college, I recognized that evolution designed all eyes as dynamic systems. It's either that way or not that way. But that's a scientific question. It has nothing to do with medicine. It has to do with evolution designing a very sophisticated control system. If you do not permit this conversation to exist, then maybe you're happy thinking the eye as a wet tissue blob for understanding. So thinking all eyes as a control systems, and had to be that way. Nothing's changed. It has always been that way until enters optometry and the ignorance of the public. Then forget everything because you're not going to make it. So it was only meeting Raphaelson I realized the impossibility of prevention in optometry. Well, it can be prevented, but not by an optometrist and not with ignorance of the public of the eye's dynamic behavior. So I'm now using Raphaelson's method of prevention 120 years later. I've been using PLUS for 15 years for reading to keep my refractive state measured positive. As an engineer, I certainly know how to do it. The method used to the year 1900 until they invented a retinoscope. Very straightforward. Kepler did it. Target, object, get a minus lens, it sharpens your vision. That's your prescription. So then I met Raphaelson, and I was thinking of my immediate relatives. I could not let their vision go down the drain without a fight. I could lose the fight, but I don't quit. I don't quit on the eye that's a highly sophisticated control system unless you want to tell me it's not. And then we'll have a scientific argument. You may win the scientific argument, you may lose it, but at least you understand the concept, which does not happen today. So it occurred to me that the plus used correctly before you start wearing a minus could be effective in prevention for an engineer. Can't be effective for the ignorance of the public. I won't even argue about it, just the way it is. So here is Raphaelson. And here's the printer's son. So it's reversed. So this is why no one medical can help you. 100% impossible. The printer had a kid who was about 20/40. Took the kid to Raphaelson. Raphaelson had to use had the kid do this. Put a plus in, reading at 20 inches. Makes reading at infinity. Got rid of near work. So this went on for 6 weeks until it entered the printer. Well, at this point, this kid's refraction had changed from a negative value to a positive value. And the kid had 20/20. So enter a printer who knew an eye chart. And so the brilliant printer put an eye chart up, and then the kid's reading the eye chart. At this point, the kid has 20/20. So what conclusion can you reach from that? As the printer did. The printer concluded that Raphaelson was an outlandish fraud, selling glasses to kids who don't need glasses because they have 20/20 6 weeks later. That is why no optometrist can ever help you with prevention. And that's why I use a plus to prevent myself from re-entering myopia. The ignorance of the public guarantees failure. Guaranteed. So the question is, did evolution design a dynamic control system? Or in other people's mind, it's a wet tissue blob that somehow focuses light. Depends on your academic knowledge, concept knowledge, and ultimately whether you want to avoid, prevent, stay out of a negative reactive state for the dynamic normal eye. I cannot answer that question for you. I will say that once you start wearing a minus lens, it's over for you. You can't reverse it, rather than argue about it. So I'm using Raphaelson's method 120 years later because I'm an engineer and respect all eyes. My eyes is dynamic and all eyes as dynamic. With exception, you can't reverse it once you start with a minus lens. If you have a minus lens prescription and you're an engineer and you use a Snellen, and I've given you a handheld cell phone so you could check yourself, but nobody does because they love that minus lens and they're like the printer and his son. I'm certain that once the printer's son started wearing a minus lens, it's established in the last 120 years. All optometrists I know will try to deny that truth for the completely normal eye. And that's why I don't bother arguing with optometrists, because it's pointless. The public does not want prevention. They don't want the intellectual ability of it. Think of the eyes as sophisticated control systems, not bad cameras. Until your mind can change that way, you can't be successful. People will come and say, oh, I've got a -3, -4. I have to say, forget it. You lost it when you started wearing a minus lens. What optometry manuals publish is this. If they don't publish this, it's not science anymore. I did that too. I profoundly regret doing it. You don't know how much. But I don't blame the optometrists. I blame parents that don't understand this well enough to start prevention before the kid gets down to 20/40. So that's the story of the printer, the public's ignorance, and the ease at which it is to sell a kid a minus lens, even though he might have been able to get out of 20/40. Now I'm wearing a plus. The way printer Raphaelson could thought about doing it. Sit down to read at 20 inches. I have a 2.5. I push away and just blur point is 20 inches. That's how you see where you are. Jake Steiner's a little bit different. But the only right way is a Snellen and test lenses, which means an engineer. Whether you like prevention or don't like prevention at 20/40, 20/40 is the point where you make a choice because you want to change your refraction from a negative value to positive value as I measure it. If you don't want to measure it, forget it. You're not an engineer. My deepest sympathy is with the optometrist. They have the same problem J.K. Steiner had on 20 years, 120 years. The public does not want prevention. They expect people to be ignorant the way the printer's son and parent was. That's impossible. 120 years ago, it's still impossible. I was fortunate to be an engineer, had nothing to do with optometry, nothing to do with ophthalmology, just to do with how all fundamental eyes actually do behave when you test them correctly as control systems. Anybody designing control systems knows the tests. And when they're run correctly, it's a refractive state. Absolute confirmation. But if you believe all eyes are tissue, wet tissue blobs, you won't get anywhere. So I am grateful for success by using the plus correctly and making all refractive state measurements myself to confirm my refraction is positive. But few people have that interest and absolutely no motivation at all. Zero. They don't even look at the Snellen. Although there's certainly a right way to look at the Snellen. So add your own commentary. Please don't ask optometrists to help you. They just want to give you a minus lens. And you, being the son of a printer, won't make it. You will not make it. So I see prevention as an engineering scientific program with engineers who design control systems who might take prevention seriously when they're 2040 on their Snellen. Add your own commentary. Amazing how little commentary I actually get. I guess everybody knows everything, so they don't have to learn anything new. Thank you.